The first vending machine is what we call the vending machine actually happened in Atlanta. You know, we were just discussing, Ben, Ernie, and I, about like, hey, do we want to like do kind of a pickup? You know, obviously when you do a delivery, it's convenient, but like if people don't know who you are, it's like a dealership coming to you and it's like you can't really escape. We're like, well, what could a pickup experience look like? But it couldn't be like a dealership in disguise. And it was like, well, what if we made it like a car vending machine? And
once we got that foothold in downtown in Atlanta, it really did give a different vibe. But it had doors that rolled up and it did have bays, that it just wasn't a tower.
we're like, hey, we'll just put like a little keypad in there and we'll call it a car vending machine. People will get a code, it'll probably be the same code for everyone. It'll be like 1, 2, 3, 4. But if you show up, you still get that kind of like feeling that I'm doing something different, right? And it's not like, there's no salespeople there. It's really on brand, it's kind of branded, and we can like market it. And I think that was really important kind of milestone for us. From that point, it was like, okay, now let's actually really do it.
So the Nashville vending machine was opening, and it was our first vending machine in like a tower. For some reason, we thought that like we were gonna get a million phone calls that morning. We had our script, we had our headsets on, we were like ready to go. We got there at 3 in the morning, so because we wanted to be like ready for East Coast time, because like the PR was like breaking and all of this. And we sat there for like 3 or 4 hours. And like, there was no calls. And it was like, we just kept looking at each other and we were like, okay, when are the calls gonna start? When are the calls gonna start? And we were so ready to talk to customers and we didn't get one call the whole morning. They didn't come that day. They did come later. So the calls came later. So, and we had advocates to answer them better than we would have. So it would all worked out.
Just going from like idea of conception to like, let's actually create a car vending machine, and then like halfway through, like what if we made it coin operated? Let's actually kind of figure that out. That moment when Ernie and I were out there and kind of launched it and then kind of like came back, it was just like, wow, that's kind of cool. We had this random idea and then we kind of went and did it, and people really do kind of love it.
Our parent company, Drive Time, had a very large inspection center there in Winder, Georgia.
Welcome to the center of the universe. That was something that I used to say a good bit as we would interact with some of the advocates that would come out when we first started, because everything and operations started there in Winder.
A challenge that we still face is the car that we're buying actually the car that the customer described and depicted? And how honest are people? Surprisingly, in the beginning, a lot of people were honest. And we've done well. We've done a great job. You know, a lot of people didn't think that the concept was gonna take off. And then it's like, oh, you're gonna buy these cars from customers sight unseen. But look at where we are now. So yeah, it's all paid off.
So when I first started, we had this amazing photo studio created, and it was this giant cylinder structure. The gray wall itself, the contractors didn't really know how to create a curved gray wall, so they made it out of all these tiny little slivers of drywall banded together to create this curved experience. Which looked great, but if you stepped on it, you would pop your foot right through it.
Totally different operation than we have now, totally different structure.
Our first process was about 20 minutes long, end to end, to do the process. And today, it's as quick as 7 minutes. At some point, we started to get really serious about our working environments and designing a facility from the ground up.
The decision to decide when to expand is an interesting one. There's 2 components to that decision. There is, like, do you have sufficient customer demand? And then the second part is like, are you capable of handling that demand? And that's a very complicated question. And now I gotta go build new facilities. I gotta connect these new locations with the logistics apparatus. I gotta go hire new managers, new leaders. Interestingly enough, I think the demand part came first. I think we started to see really good traction, that people were really gravitating to the product.
Basically, from like the website perspective, I helped launch locations 3 through 100 for Carvana. So we'd have all of our locations. We'd have to basically track the distance from all of our locations to every zip code in the US. It was kind of a manual process. So we used to use MapQuest back in the day. I don't think anyone really uses MapQuest anymore.
We recently went and visited one of our inspection centers, our facility in Haines City. And this was when we designed ourselves. And so seeing the entire flow of it and the apparatus that we had designed around there was really wild, just to walk through that and see like, this is something that we'd kind of conceptualized. It was something that a lot of people probably didn't think that we'd be capable of building and being able to do it at the scale that we were able to do. The coolest part about it is after we did the walkthrough of the facility, the GM there, Kevin, also took us into the break room, and up on the wall, he had a list, like a running tally of all the promotions they had done inside the facility. And that struck me as really, really cool. It was like this juxtaposition of, is this massive warehouse, sort of like manufacturing building that we had built, that we're now putting thousands of cars through on an annual basis. But then it also was paired kind of with the people part, where we had a guy that was super, super focused on career pathing and making sure, celebrating people that are moving up through the organization. And so I thought like seeing those two things come together was cool, because in a lot of ways that's like what Carvana is. You're doing a lot of cool conceptual things, a lot of cool business things, but they're all rooted at the end of the day in a lot of different people coming together to work well. And so that moment like stands out to me as one where I was like, this is pretty cool.